Welcome to the Wake Up Call podcast. I'm your host, Alicia Hopkins, life coach, recovering perfectionist, crazy animal lover, and your go-to friend for all things wellness. If you're the type of woman who constantly feels burned out, overwhelmed, and like you have zero time for yourself, then this is the show for you. I'll show you that it is completely possible to live a life you look forward to every single day by learning simple, actionable steps to start putting yourself first. Burnout and overwhelm are not welcome here, but a little bit of crazy sure is. So if you're ready for your wake-up call with a girl who's not afraid to drop an F-bomb every now and then, let's dive in. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Wake Up Call podcast. Whether you're a repeat listener or your first time hanging out with us today, I'm so glad you're here. Also, I wanted to thank you. A few of you reached out after our last episode and told me that you liked the new intro. Thank you so much. That means the world. I don't know if you got a chance to catch it. I know a lot of times when I'm listening to a podcast, I will hit, fast forward through the intro. But if you did that, make sure you go back, listen to it. We're just giving the Wake Up Call podcast a little bit of a glow up. The last little thing I wanted to say is if you haven't yet rated and reviewed the show, would you do me a solid? It takes just a second to do it. It really does help people find the show. And it means a lot to me when I get to read what you like and what's sticking with you. And it means a lot to me to know what you like and what's resonating. So thank you for those that you've already done that. And I appreciate in advance for all of you that are going to do that for me. I really appreciate it. Okay. So I want to talk about something that I think is running the show in a lot of our lives. And it's a sense of urgency, right? And it might show up in a variety of ways for you. I know I tend to see it a lot in my relationship with my phone, mostly because these, beautiful little things that we carry in the palm of our hand have lots of bells and whistles that catch our attention. And often I fall for it, right? Text messages, phone calls, email alerts. It's like anytime something lights up or makes a sound on my phone, I feel like I have to respond right away. I started noticing some behaviors show up and, had a conversation with a friend and she related to them as well. And I thought, I don't think this is an isolated experience. I think many of us are struggling with urgency and this pressure to feel like we have to respond to things right now, right? Maybe you are at a stoplight and you find yourself picking up your phone to try to respond to a text. Like, why do you need to respond at a stoplight? Why can't you just wait till you get to your destination and then respond? Or, God knows, enough of us like distracted driving, like feeling the need to try to respond to a text message while you're driving. Yeah, that is not a good thing. I also think it shows up that like the second our phone makes a noise, we feel that compulsion to just pick it up and check it. Like my phone can be in a different room, right? I can be in the kitchen, I don't know, loading the dishwasher and my phone makes a bing and I feel compelled to go pick it up. Why? Why do we do that? And also too, just feeling this pressure that even when it's not a good time for you to pick up a phone call, because your phone is ringing and someone is calling you, you feel like you have to answer, right? I think these are pressures we bring on to ourselves. And when we start looking at it a little bit different, we realize that you don't have to respond to every request, ding, bing, alert that crosses our path, right? You get to decide. But I think sometimes there's some things that I'm going to go into that influence that for us and put us in this place where we feel like we need to be available to respond at all times. And it's just not true, right? So I think one thing that shows up for a lot of us is needing to better be able to prioritize what gets our attention and when, right? This is a struggle for me. I know, I can trace a big influence in my life has been I've worked in healthcare the bulk of my career. And in the type of healthcare I worked in, a lot of times these calls that would happen or emails we get were like pressing priorities. They needed addressed right away. And I know that's carried over into a lot of my life, right? Of just thinking that everything is equally important. And when we step back, it's just not true, right? There are certain things that, yes, could require us to respond in a timely manner, but other things could probably wait a little bit. So if you find yourself responding to everything as equal importance, translation needs you to fix it or address it right now, I think some prioritization could be looked at, right? I also think that we carry this fear of being judged, that if we don't respond right away, what does that say about us? Like, we think that everyone is relying on the response they need to hear from us. And sure, in some instances that may be true, but where it turns into a slippery slope is when we're treating everything that is asking for our attention as like, if I don't respond right now, the world will fall apart, right? We're creating this false belief that they need to know right now. And that's not necessarily the case, right? And also too, we're also doing a lot of assuming that by not responding to, I don't know, a text message right this second will lead to a judgment placed on us. Like, maybe someone just shot you a text message because they needed to get it, like it popped in their head. They wanted to go ahead and send it real quick, and they've already moved on to something else. Like, I think we envision that someone sends us a text message and then they're holding that phone, just like counting down the second until you write back, right? The looking for the dots, right? You know, if you have an iPhone, the dots to show like if you're typing back. It's like we think that someone's waiting for that. And if they don't get it, that there will be a judgment placed on us, right? And you can also piggyback into that I think that there's a lot of people pleasing that goes into it, that we think that someone's reaching out, therefore we better respond right now, right? To please them, to make them feel like that we're validating them, you know, like we're looking to get the good job, like they're asking something of us and we want to meet that need right away. I think that sometimes perpetuates this feeling of, I got to respond right now. And we also have to, right, acknowledge the world in which we live in, right? I'm talking a lot about phones. You're going to hear me keep coming back to that in this episode. But the reality of our world is we are super connected. We value knowing and getting things done right now. We want instant gratification, fast, fast, fast. And quite frankly, you've probably gotten accolades in your life or done well in your job or done well as a mom, done well as a volunteer, whatever. You've probably had great success by, you know, kicking ass and taking names, doing things right now. So we've got this kind of like cultural messaging around that it is valued if you get back, you respond right now. And I think that these things lurking under the surface play into why we are treating everything as urgent. But you have to pause and say, what's the cost? What is the cost in your life right now if you are treating everything as a red hot, needs to get done right now priority? I bet you it's robbing you of some relaxation, some peace. I bet you feel like you're always on. And what you may not realize is happening is you're actually reinforcing the fight or flight system that takes place in our body, right? When you feel like you're perpetually having to be on and responding, you're keeping your body in a heightened sense of awareness, right? Which is working against what you want. Because I'm guessing if you're listening to this podcast, you probably relate to feeling burned out. You probably feel a little frenetic in your life. Maybe you have anxiety. And I'm guessing you're pretty freaking exhausted. And when you treat everything as urgent and need to know right now, need to get back right now, you are perpetuating that response that is making you feel the way you don't want to feel in your life. So I want you to really think about that, right? Re-examining your relationship to how you respond, because when we treat everything as important, you may not realize it. It's almost like you're creating this hierarchy in your life that everyone else's time, asks, wants of you are more important than what you want for you. If you make yourself available all the damn time to everyone else in your life, guess who you're putting last? You. You are putting what you want to be doing with your time last. You are not giving yourself the ability to disconnect and just chill out, right? Be disconnected for a while because you're treating every demand or alert or notification that comes from your freaking phone as something you have to respond to right now. And it's just not true. When we go about our life like this, you start noticing that you are reacting to things rather than responding. And I want to talk about that for a second because I think that it's very nuanced and maybe you hear it, but it's actually pretty freaking important. When you are reacting, you are automatically taking action to anything that crosses your path. When you respond, you are letting something cross your path. You're maybe processing it, you're thinking about it, and you're choosing how you respond, right? There's a difference when you choose versus automatically reacting to the things that happen in your life. I know for me, when I've operated in a place of being in constant reactionary mode, I did not feel like I was in control of my time. I felt like I was just always waiting to have a response to something that happened to me, right? Like react to what happened. Like I was trying to give a good like analogy. Like I felt like I was, say, like a raft tossed around in the ocean. Like I'm just going wherever the wind is taking me. And then I got to a point that I was like, wait a minute, I want to say where I go. Like I want to say what my responses are. And starting to slide out of urgency mode has been one of the most important things that has aided my ability to start feeling like I have choice in how I respond, what I do with my time. I can, quite frankly, protect my time a lot better when I stop acting in urgency mode. So I wanted to share some simple little hacks that may help you start putting some boundaries around the things that are tempting you to be in urgency mode all the time, right? I'm a big fan of simple, straightforward. These recommendations I have are not rocket science, but I think that they're things we're afraid to do because we're so used to always being available and on and feeling like we have to meet everyone else's needs before our own. So these are some little simple, quick things you can do in your life that I think will start making you feel like you can kind of slow things down a little bit and actually have the time to process what's crossing your path versus just all the time being reactionary. Okay. So right now you are listening to this podcast. I'm going to take a wild guess. You're listening through a phone. I want you to look at your phone and there's a little button that has like an on-off switch and it's your silence button. Get to know this button. It can be your best friend. So what I want you to start doing is practice this. Practice putting your phone on silent, whether it's certain hours of the day or if you're doing certain activities that you don't want to be interrupted. And that might be hard at first, right? Like even hearing me say that you don't want to be interrupted because you feel like, but wait, like people are relying on me. What if someone calls and they really need something? I'm here to tell you if someone really, really, really needs to get in touch with you because there is something emergent happening, they're going to be able to track you down. So you taking 30 minutes of quiet time where your phone doesn't make any noise, I'm pretty sure the majority of the time you're going to be just fine. So I want to tell you how this has played out for me. When I go on a walk, that is something that is protected for me. Like that is a non-negotiable. When I go on a walk, that is my time. 99% of the time I'm listening to a podcast. I love moving my body. I love feeding my brain with good content. I don't want that to be interrupted by a text message that comes through. So I put my phone on silent when I go on my walks. I feel like I am allowed and I am deserving, I am worthy of 30 minutes, 45 minutes to myself where it gets to just be about what I need. You do too, my friend. You deserve that. So when you are doing intentional activities, start putting your phone on silent. You might even want to take it a step further and say like your waking hours, maybe your first hour of the day, you don't want to receive any sort of notification. Put your freaking phone on silent. Maybe it's at the end of the workday and you're like, you know what? I'm done. Silence the freaking phone. Start protecting the time, right? You deserve it. I know that can be hard and scary, but you deserve to have uninterrupted time in your life. And it is a way that you practice building the muscle of choosing times that you do and don't respond to things, right? It starts giving you a little bit more control over the time that you are available and the time when you're offline, right? So silencing, so helpful. Piggybacking off of that, I'm sure you have this in your life too, but there are certain, say, group threads, or there are certain people in your life that are really prone to texting a lot, right? Like they're active texters. What you can do, at least on an iPhone, I'm pretty sure this is consistent on other phones too. I've started silencing certain threads. Like there's a thread that I have that there's probably like 10 people on it. And I love it. I love that thread. But by me silencing it, I get to choose when I look at that thread, when I respond, when I take action on it, versus, you know what it's like, right? You hear the instant bing and then there's like 6 others that follow from group threads. It stresses me out. Like it interrupts the things I'm doing and it makes me feel like I need to be responding to. So just start silencing those threads. Any active text threads that you feel like you just need a little bit of control over, or, you know, bringing choice into when you respond, just silence them. Super easy. Okay. Something else I want you to start practice doing. You may, if you listen to the last episode, you heard me use this, but I really want you to be a single tasker in your life. And what this means is when you are doing a particular task, do it to completion and then move on to the next thing, right? So you do things one thing at a time. So whether that is unloading the dishwasher, making dinner, I don't know, running some errands, do them one thing at a time. Bring intention to that one activity and you do it to completion. And if something interrupts it, you get tempted to, take action on something else, just come back to the original thing you were doing. When you start practicing being a single tasker in your life, it starts building this sense of prioritization. Like if I am doing something, if I'm actively doing something, I chose to do it. Therefore, I want to do it to completion and then move on to the next thing. I also want to piggyback off this too, because my mind is going also to like another literal example, and my mind's going to work, right? And in the beginning of the morning, I fire up my laptop, I look at my inbox, and it's not uncommon while I'm responding to one email, a few other ones might come in. And it's very tempting. You see the subject line and you're like, oh crap, I need to know what's happening there. Well, guess what? You can still find out what's happening, but finish the first email you're on. Like finish that first, then go to the next one, right? It's like first thing in, first thing out. Then the next thing in, then you address it. Learn to start doing things one thing at a time. Being a multitasker is reinforcing this urgency culture, right? We've got to start slowing down and just doing things one thing at a time. When your brain is constantly engaged, it's treating everything as important. And it's just not true, guys. Like not everything requires you to respond to it right this freaking second. So being a single tasker helps you start to have a little bit more control over where your time is going, right? So I hope that these, few little hacks that I provided for you, and, you probably are picking up that most of them are around our phone, but the reality is these things are designed to have us glued to them. So in order to start shifting that power dynamic, letting you have a little bit more control over your precious real estate in your mind, we've got to start working smarter, not harder. And some of which is, finding some space. I also just want to say, when it comes to text messages and things like that, take this as me giving you permission. You don't have to respond to everything right away. And you know what? This is currently something I'm working on. I have this thing where I purposely, I won't read a text message right away because I'm thinking, I know I alluded to this in the beginning of the episode of I have had fears of if I read a text message and I don't respond right away, that person's going to see that I read it and didn't respond. I feel like we all kind of carry that same fear. So what if we just started giving ourselves permission and assumed positive intent that when someone reads a text message and they don't respond right away, they just couldn't respond right away, right? So you deserve that too. You can read a text message and not respond right away. I think we've got to start breaking down some of these like root causes or thoughts that are prompting us to think we have to do things. There is no judgment around not responding to a text message right away. So I have been challenging myself that even if I read a text message and I can't respond right away, I will still read it and I'll come back to it when I can. Because think about it, you probably have friends that do the same in your life and you're not like placing all these wild judgments against them. So let's just start like taking some space from it and just choosing when we react to things. I hope these suggestions are helpful to you. I hope they help you create a little bit of space. And I promise you, if you do some of these things with consistency, it sounds silly. I know they're all really simple, but you start experiencing what it's like to respond. Well, let me say this. You start experiencing what it's like to respond, not react, number one, but you also start experiencing what it's like to respond to things when you're coming from the space when you're ready to respond, rather than just frantically firing away a response because you feel like you have to do it right now. So guys, let's reverse this trend of urgency culture, right? Let's start protecting our peace and start choosing how and when our time, our energy, our resources are used, right? If you're looking to correct and get off the course of burnout and exhaustion, anxiousness, one of those things is learning to redefine your relationship around how you use your time, your resources, and one of which is just realizing everything is just not that damn urgent, right? So guys, I hope this was helpful. I hope that these tips will help you create a little bit of space in your life. I'm so glad you tuned in for this week's episode. I cannot wait to connect with you on our bi-weekly frequency. So in 2 weeks, your next episode will be out. In the meantime, connect with me on Instagram at Alicia D. Hopkins. Catch up on old episodes. And I'm just so glad that you tuned in. Can't wait to talk with you soon. Bye, guys. Thank you so much for listening to the Wake Up Call podcast. If you liked what you heard today, I would love for you to subscribe and leave a review. It takes just a few minutes and does wonders for helping other people find the podcast. If you want to connect outside of the podcast, you can do so by following at Alicia D. Hopkins on Instagram. And if you really liked the episode you just listened to, do me a favor. Would you screenshot the episode and tag me? I would love to see what's resonating with you. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope today's episode helped you to see that you can wake up to the change that's possible in your life.